Okay, good morning. Let's start. Okay, so today we'll study block ciphers. We are still in symmetric encryption methodology. Okay, all right. So the contents of the presentation have been taken from these sources, mainly from University of California, Berkeley's book. This nice book written by them is available on their website. Please check. And also some other things, right? Even this book is quite good by Christoph Parr and Pezel. Okay, and if you want to really learn a lot about crypto algorithms, etc., in great detail, then read this book. This is a classical book. These 3-4 books are quite nice to read. Okay, so just to recap what we have covered so far in the course, we have covered security principles. We have looked at authentication method like password solves, and then how we can crack the password. Then we have looked at authorization methods, also authentication methods apart from passwords, right? I mean, like biometrics, etc. Authorization method, we have seen how we can authorize a process or a person to use certain resources. Not all process or person should have capable to use all the resources, right? By default, we use the method that anybody should have minimum resources that are needed to do a job. Okay, then we started learning about cryptography. We learned basics of symmetric key encryption, and in that we have got one-time pad. Okay, and these are the topics left out to be covered in the course. Okay, I hope we will get enough time. Okay, all right. Just before starting today's lecture, just want to tell you that okay, over the years, in last 20-30 years, since internet has become popular, then attacks have increased because the complexity of systems have increased, right? So initially we had just standalone computers, then they got connected over internet, over modems. Then we had very high speed links, like we have then came ADSL or DSL, and some countries people use TV cables to get internet data or internet connectivity. And later on we have moved from ADSL etc. to fiber. Okay, so now we are into the fiber. So basically connectivity to home of internet is coming through fiber, and every building will have a router which is common for all residents of the building, and then from your local router you connect to that over fiber, and that fiber in your building is in turn connected over to main router through another fiber, right? Okay, so what we see that the bandwidth cost is decreasing. Bandwidth is also while bandwidth cost is decreasing, bandwidth is increasing. Okay, and technology is also changing, right? From communication technology is changing from simple, we have now Wi-Fi, we have now 5G, and so on, right? And then we have cloud, and so on, right? So basically we are increasing in terms of complexity. As complexity of systems around us is increasing, okay, number of attacks are also increasing. Okay, at the same time, cost of attack is decreasing very fast, right? How much money I will spend as a criminal, a cyber criminal to do an attack, right? Earlier it was done, using own proprietary tools and so on and so forth, right? And now all these tools are available. Okay, like password cracker is available to all of us, right? You would have used one such, right? It's available for free. Similarly, many such tools are available. And note that if you want to learn about ethical hacking, then you have to learn about tools. And of course, you need to know technology, but more about tools. Okay, there's a reason, I mean, you'll find that somebody who is just a school graduate, or 12th class student can do hacking, right? It's just essentially you need to know how many tools are available and how can you apply those tools or techniques to break into a system. All right. All right. So now we'll come back to our regular lecture. So last lecture we studied about cryptography. Cryptography is nothing but ways to securely communicate over insecure channel. So insecure channel can have, Eve or Mallory. Eve can just sniff through, just interested in knowing what's happening, right? Can't do much, or maybe also may not be interested in doing. Mallory is more dangerous because he can not only read the text but also change the text. Okay, so insecure channel can have these two kinds of people, and all right, and then we'll have to make sure that data reaches from Alice to Bob without these people able to do anything around it. Okay, and then we have seen that now there are two kinds of encryptions. One is symmetric key encryption and second is asymmetric key encryption. So we are still into symmetric key encryption, right? Okay, uh, symmetric key encryption says that we have a key which is fairly long key, maybe 128-bit key. Initially it was 56-bit key and so on and so forth, right? But now we use either 128-bit key or 256-bit key. Okay, so the key, we take some text which is to be sent. Alice sending it to Bob. This plain text has to be available to Bob. Okay, while channel is insecure, where will you have all kinds of people, right? Alice or sorry, Bob or Mallory, etc. Right? Okay, then we use encryption algorithm, and then use and that encryption algorithm uses key. Okay, and this key and the key available to Bob are the same. Okay, so both keys are same. So this key is used to encrypt plain text, and what we get is ciphertext. Ciphertext then goes to Bob, and Eve and Mallory can't do anything over insecure channel, and Bob uses the same key to decrypt this, and the same plain text, exactly same plain text available to Bob. Okay, so this is the method. Now challenge here is that how key has to be transmitted from one end to another end securely. Okay, and this is a very popular method. So it means that there must be mechanisms to exchange keys securely, which we'll study later in the course. Okay, please try to understand concept. Okay, and now as a user, you just need to use the encryption algorithms available to you. So you need to understand APIs, its parameter, etc., etc. You don't need to go into how these encryption algorithms are designed, because you are not designer of encryption algorithms. Okay, you are just user. Okay, however, in this class we'll look at some aspects. It's just a template version, right? Just at very top level how encryption actually happens, but they are a specialist in designing encryption algorithms. So and this encryption algorithm that you, even if as a designer, if you design, is design should be known to everyone, because Kirchhoff principle says that's only key should be confidential, design of algorithm should be can be open, right? It has to be open. Like, the locks that we use at home, every every company will possibly make a lock with the same design. Even thieves will know how to design a lock. But what secures home is nothing but a key. Okay, the same concept here. The how do you use key? What is the key that, and how keys are actually used in encryption algorithm? That's the important. And how do you choose the key? How do you store the key? So you all need to know how to generate key and how to use key in an encryption algorithm. Okay, all right. Now the three characteristics we have seen: correctness. It means that what we are encrypting using key should be available. Same text should be available after decryption, and then it should be efficient. It should not take minutes and so on. Should be It's possible to do this in nanoseconds or maybe milliseconds, and it should be extremely confidential, right? All right. And then we have studied about one way of one property of confidentiality, which is IND-CPA. Okay, with this was an experiment where where Eve can trick Alice in encrypting the message of her choice, and then finally, after doing all this for some time, she sends M0 and N1, and then Alice picks up one of them randomly and encrypts it and sends it back to Eve. But Eve should not be able to find out which one has been encrypted with probability greater than 1.5. Greater than 0.5. Okay. And then based on that, we then later on we looked at one-time pad concept, and wherein is nothing but exclusive OR of text with the key. And since key is chosen randomly, okay, and use only once, it has very unique properties, but it's not very practical because the keys have to be first of same length as text, and secondly, keys cannot be reused. Okay, all right. So this is what we have studied in the last class. Now, today, very in rest for 35-40 minutes, we will look at block ciphers. There are two block ciphers. Okay, now block ciphers we are using here in terms of in the context of symmetric key encryption. Is part of symmetric key encryption, right? But note that okay, so apart from block ciphers, there are stream cipher as well, right? We'll not go into stream ciphers because stream ciphers is like what we do in continuous media like OTT, etc. You have a stream of data coming and you don't have too much time, right? So you just do something and send it. So input is stream and output is also stream. So we'll not look at this because we'll go into more complex thing like block ciphers. So the two block ciphers are used on a block of data. Okay, that's the reason this block comes in picture, right? So you have a file, convert this into a number of blocks of certain size and use encryption on that. Okay, so there are two important schemes, DES and AES. We'll look at both of these today, and then look at the characteristics of these, and then we'll look at issues with block ciphers, and then we'll summarize. So here we are in our cryptography roadmap. We have started learning about block ciphers. Okay, so block cipher, as I said, encrypts and decrypts fixed size block of bits. The block size has to be defined. Okay, so plain text we say n bits size. Okay, all right, and this is encryption algorithm. This is right now two popular ones are AES and earlier was DES. Okay, and then we use key of fixed size K, okay, to encrypt this plain text of size n bits. So this is a block of n bits, and then we get output also of n bits. And similarly, we do decryption. We have ciphertext what we have received as n bits, and then use same key of k bits and decrypt, and we get the plain text. Okay, all right. So this is how we define it. So please go through it. Okay. All right. So what are the properties of this? Correctness. It has to be correct. Of course, algorithm is correct. And note that we define encryption. Okay, it's a mapping of n bits to n bits. Okay, so n bits are mapped into n bits. Okay, it's not just copied, otherwise no encryption, right? So it has to be jumbled up, or it has to be permuted, right? So this is nothing but a permutation. All right. So this is a permutation. So encryption is nothing but a permutation of n bits to n bits, and what permutation that we are going to have depends on these k bits. Okay. So if there are k bits, obviously number of permutations, that are number of mappings on input to output that are possible is 2 raised power k. Okay. So if k is larger, number of mappings will more. It's much more difficult to break. All right. Second, of course, we know that encryption decryption has to be fast. And third is security, that encryption has to behave like random permutation. All right. So now you would have possibly studied graph theory, and you know that there's a function called bijective function. This bijective function in plain simple term is from n inputs to n outputs a one-to-one mapping. So here, for example, there are 4 inputs and 4 outputs. Okay. So this is a one-to-one mapping. If it's non-bijective, then there are 2 inputs can map into 1 output. So in our block cipher scheme, what should we have? Should we have this kind of mapping, bijective mapping, or non-bijective mapping? Anyone? Aditi Singh? Yeah, anyone can answer this. Abhinav Kumar, are you there? You guys can't answer a simple thing? Aryan? Aryan Garg? The 2 Aryans, I guess. Yeah. Are you able to hear me? Hello? Folks, can you hear me or not? Anyone can answer this.
You're audible.
So I'm
Yes,
asking
sir,
this
you are
question.
audible.
Very simple question. You can attempt at least, right? So cipher, you're designing a cipher, and the mapping function, basically you're designing a mapping function from inputs to outputs. Which one of the two you would prefer, bijective or non-bijective? Anyone? Okay.
Bijective.
Answer is right. Yeah.
Bijective.
Which one? Good, no?
Bijective.
You try to answer.
Sir, can it be bijective?
Yeah, it has to be bijective. Why? Simple
Sir,
reason is that.
because every
Yeah.
input should have a unique output.
That's right. Very right. So reason is that now you have done this function, right? Two inputs have been mapped to one output here, right? So when you do reverse, then it can go to either this one or that one. The two possibilities are there, which is not correct. It means that your input is changing. Suppose your initially 1 0 is mapped to 1 1, and then your reverse function, there are two possibilities. You take this one. So now your input in decryption, this thing becomes 1 0 instead of 1 1. It can take up 1 0 again, or anything like that, right? So it's not unique. Okay, all right. So it has your bijective function. Intuition is that if it is non-bijective, then two inputs might correspond to same output, and so reverse will also not be unique. So in given cipher text y, say this y, you can't uniquely decrypt this y, because you don't know whether it's going to be x1 or x2. All right. Okay. So how do you then have security of this? How do you define then? Then you say that it has to be just a random permutation. Now let's say one of these is random permutation, and second one of these is through encryption. Okay. Now all you have available is this one, input to output, right? So looking at that output, can you say that which one is one is randomly generated, second is by encryption method? Can you say that which is by encryption method? If you cannot distinguish them, then you say that your cipher is secure. Okay, so you have two of these permutation. One of these is through randomly chosen key k and encrypt, and then come out with output, and then you ask somebody, so which is by which one of these through random permutation, or which one of these are through encryption. If one can't distinguish, then you can say it's a secure. All right, it's called distinguishing game. Okay, so now how much? So now we have, so minimum key that we use is 128 bit here, right? Let's assume we are using 128 bit key. Of course, DES started with 56 bits key. Okay, why 56 is not even 2 raised power whatever. So but there is some history around it. So let's see how difficult it is to break, because we see that this key generate a random is some permutation, right? So in order to break it, you'll have to brute force create all possible combination of keys. Okay, so 128 combinations means that 2 raised power 128 possibility. So when we write this number, looks very small, right? But it's extremely big, right? So essentially it will turn out, if you do simple mathematics, okay, okay, all right, this is approximately equal to 10 raised power 39, and you have very powerful computer, and you tried 1 billion keys in 1 nanosecond. Okay, you would have seen that John the Ripper is quite slow because your laptop is slow, but now let's assume you have because I mean, you normally don't have instructions until you have GPUs more than the cycle time. Okay, like clock cycle time. So at most you can run 1.5 instruction per cycle time if you do smart things, but let's assume one cycle time, then you cannot do even 1 billion operation in 1 nanosecond, right? Okay, so it means that we can do even with this computer 10 raised power 18 keys per second. So how much time it will take to break, or do brute force with 10 raised power 39? is 2 raised power 128. So many permutations are possible, and you have to find out which one, because you will continuously check to break. Okay, so it will take 10 raised power 21 seconds. Now it looks very small in number, right? So 1 year is 3 into 10 raised power 7. So breaking this by brute force will require 30 trillion years. It's quite a big number. Okay, so we can safely say 128 bit key size is good enough. Okay, all right. Now let's change it to 256, and let's assume that we have computer, we can break, each computer can break at the same speed as we said right here, 10 raised power 18 keys per second, and now we parallelize it. This is the speed of one computer, and let's use multiple computers, right, or multiple chips. Okay, and then each chip will take 1 cubic millimeter. Each computer will take 1 cubic millimeter. Is kind of this, maybe very tiny. Then in order to do brute force, you'll have to create a massively parallel computer. How much space that computer will take? Okay, so this will take 10 raised power 43 cubic meter of space, which is equivalent to volume of 7 into 10 raised power 15 suns. It means that brute force attack on modern block ciphers are not possible, assuming the key is random and secret. Okay, this is a takeaway. Any question? What is the brute force attack on cipher text? You have cipher text available, it leaked out. Okay, it's leaked out to you. Okay, and then you apply, and you know the algorithm, decryption algorithm. Use key. Now you don't know what the key is, then you randomly generate it one by one, and then you look at the output. Now output looks also the same as that has been encrypted earlier, which you can somehow make out. It's like a letter or whatever, or diagram, etc. Then you say you are successful. So now you have to generate these keys randomly, one by one, and right, how much time is going to take? That's how we have discussed, right? It's going to take trillions of years if you just randomly do it. So 256 bit key is usually sufficient. Okay, any question up to this point? Okay, it should be efficient. It means that this algorithm, encryption decryption algorithm, should be fast enough, right? It should be possible to do this in microseconds. Okay, now the operations are, encrypting and decryption algorithm we have seen in case of one-time pad is nothing but exclusive OR. Now here again we are going to use this exclusive OR very efficiently, and also we do lot of manipulation like bit shifting, substitutions, etc., right? Okay, and this operation should be such that it should be done at a very fast speed, like XORs or bit shifting can be done efficiently on modern processors. Okay, so we have studied about block ciphers. Okay, just to recap, block ciphers use a block of data, which is n bits, is transformed into a permutation of n bits. This is nothing but a random, similar to random permutation. Okay, and this permutation depends on the key. Okay, so this is a permutation. Now you can use the same key to decrypt this permutation to get original. So basically we use a block of data and a key to encrypt. So so first encryption algorithm that came in late 70s is called DES. Okay, here the bit block size is 64, because note that we are even if we have large size file, will break into block of 64 and encrypt this. So right now we are assuming that we have just one block of data of 64 bits, and then we are going to encrypt this. Okay, all right, and we leave this problem how to break file into multiple blocks, etc. Okay, key size is for some reason 56 bits. Okay, it was designed by NSA or influenced by NSA, and they for some reason reduce the key size from 64 to 56, because recommendation was initially by 64 bits, but they changed it to 56 bits for some reason. Okay, all right. So this algorithm was almost unbroken for 40 years. And then when more powerful computer came, more tools came, then people realized that this algorithm is not uh, sufficiently secure, but it still is in use. Okay, all right. Okay, and then they retweak this algorithm, and later on they realize that the 56 bit key is not sufficient, it's not good enough, so they increase the key size. Okay, all right. So it looks something like this. I'm just giving a template. In AES we'll look at in detail how it happens. Okay, again we'll not go into great details because you can read it from book if you're interested. So this is a plain text of 64 bits, or it's a block of data that you want to encrypt, and this is a 64-bit key. And we say the algorithm uses 56 bits for encryption, so this 64 has to be converted into 56 bits, so there must be some permutation. Okay, now from this 56 we are going to generate multiple keys, not one key. Okay, so this is first key we are generating, this second key, and then whatever rounds of manipulations we have, so many keys we generate. So let's assume that we have 16 rounds, so we'll have 16 different keys. And how do we generate keys out of this initial 56 bit keys? There is some mechanism like left circular shift we can do, and then we can permute this. Okay, and from this we get another left circular shift we do, and do permutation of this, we get a second key, and so on. Okay, now use this key in each round. Okay, and then take the output, then it goes to second round, then output, same block of data which is 64 bits, we call it block. This block keeps going down. Okay, and after 16 rounds, there's some kind of swapping happen from left to right and so on. Okay, and then finally whatever be the initial permutation we do, we change it back, and then what we get is ciphertext. Okay, just try to just visualize it, that encryption consists of good number of rounds, and in each round we do some manipulation, and then it's largely based on exclusive OR with the key, right? But it's not plain exclusive OR, but they do some kind of operations, and finally we get the ciphertext. So what is the objective of doing all this? Objective of doing all this is that bringing in randomness. Okay, so basically, even if there is a look at the image or text, you change one bit from that, just one bit. Now output should not look very similar to encrypted output we got earlier. Okay, all right, please go through this by yourself. Okay, because we are, again, as we said, we are not really interested in going to design of how encryption is designed. Okay, all right. So basically DES achieves high degree of diffusion and confusion. Diffusion is what? Making each cipher text, making each plain text bit affect as many cipher text bits as possible. As we mentioned here, even if you change in plain text or input, you just change one bit. It should affect many bits into ciphertext. Many bits should change. Okay. All right. So this, and then all this should bring in confusion for somebody who is looking at a ciphertext. Okay. So making relationship between encryption key and ciphertext as complex as possible. So looking at ciphertext, one should not make out what can be the key use for encryption. So these are two things that we try to achieve. Any question? This is also for your self-reading. Try to understand how it works. This is what we do in each round here. This is the key that you generate or sub key. From initial key you get 48 bits, and then this is a block that keeps moving down in each round. So this is the left half of the block, right half of the block. Take right half, there's 32 bits. Okay, and then use this key using some function, get 32 bits here. Take these 32 bits, do exclusive OR, this becomes right side of the output block, and use this right side here. So there is some way, you know, of doing it, right? But this is known to everyone. All right. Okay. And there are crackers available for that, right? But it's extremely hard to crack. Even in a normal laptop, if you try to crack it, you will not be able to crack DES. But DES is old and more secure cipher was needed, hence came AES. Okay, any question up to this point? Are you able to understand what we have done? Or is it too fast? Okay. Dhananjay, can you tell me? Hello. I need input. Whether are you able to get the top level view? I am not interested knowing that you have got everything, because we have not gone into details, of DES. But did you get the idea of what is it trying to do? Anyone? Yeah. ये तो मुश्किल है. If you don't answer. Lakshman, are you there? Akhil, you have to say yes or no. Okay. Tanya, are you there?
Sir, hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a small doubt.
Yeah.
Sir, like we are saying for this encryption handles, we are using the keys handles, right? Similarly, how we did in the Linux, like we have the unshadowed version, like we separately store the passwords and the keys in a separate, I mean, the hash passwords in a separate files, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here, in case, let us assume from the server, like a hacker got deleted the keys where we stored. Then what about the data? Will they be able to recover the, I mean, the decrypt the data, or like the entire thing is gone?
See here, encryption, what are we trying to do? See, don't get confused between hashing, and hashing is one-way function.
Yeah.
Okay, here what we can also, we are trying to do reverse, we are trying to do reverse function, right? One to one.
Yeah, yes.
If the keys are not known,
Mhm.
if the key is known to a hacker, then it's simple task. Okay, if
Mhm.
key is not known, like in your Bitcoin also, if you lose your key, you can't recover your money, right? Anybody who finds money, money is his. Similarly here, if the keys are lost, you can't do anything with. Data is garbage.
Then it will be a big effect for the company, right? Like, did it happen any time, like in
Yeah,
the
so
history?
why should you lose the key?
I mean, no one loses it, but the hacker, like for a ransom or
Then
anything, they
that is
have to lose.
exactly what ransomware is. They
Okay.
encrypt. They
Hmm.
encrypt the entire disk, entire database with their own key and ask money for that.
Okay.
Okay, if hacker steals the key and nobody else knows, then now everything becomes a junk. Then it's nothing but system is hacked.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Got it. Sid. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move on to second method, AES. And I would request all of you to be alive in the class, right? It cannot be monologue, because otherwise recorded lectures are available. I can, in fact, I have recorded my lectures also, so I will send it to you then. You have to be alive in the class. Concentrate in the class is not for attendance sake only, right? Okay, and it will motivate me to teach you better. All right, so there was a competition to find out new algorithm, and finally Rendell was the finalist, and it was selected as a new block cipher because it turned out to be, efficient, faster, and security wise it was quite good. Okay, all right, so we'll not go into history of that. Okay, so here AES can be used with key size of 128 bits, 192 bits, and 256 bits. Now note that both in AES, DS, keys could be anything, is are randomly generated, right? Okay. So what differs between AES and DES is that this method of permutation. All right. Okay. So nowadays we prefer to use 256 bit keys, which is quite big. All right. Block size is always 128 bits. It means that if we have a large data which is split into 128 bits, right now we are concerned only about one block of data. So AES describes only for 128 bit data. So this is a block. We look at the block and then and do something in it in each round, and there are multiple rounds. Okay. Now what we do here depends on, we have key, initial key, from that we generate sub keys. Okay, and then use sub keys to do something in each round. What something, that we'll see in very brief. Okay, so we don't really, as a student, we don't need to understand how AES algorithm works, and we don't need to design it. Okay, but we need, here what we'll try to see is that how actually at very top level it works. Okay, all right, please go through this. Okay, so again we have seen that this 256 bit key is pretty big, so we don't need to go into details now. So this is what we are doing. Key size could be 128 bits or something in between, or 256. I think 190, what was defined, 192 bits or 256. So for right now we are assuming, let's assume that we are taking only 128 bit key. Okay, plain text size is always 128 bit and output ciphertext is 128 bits. Okay, now it looks something like this. So it goes through, this is a 128 bit plain text which we'll call a block. Okay, one block. We'll see how to generate block. It's not just bits in some order. It's arranged. Okay, so you take sorry, 128 bits. Is arrange this in a form of a block. Okay, so we get 128 bit plain text a block. Okay, and then there is a first round, is called pre-round, and then multiple rounds, right? How many rounds we use depending on the key size? Is it 10, 12 or 14 depending on key size, 128, 192 or 256. Okay, let's assume we are using 128 bit key, so we have 10 rounds here, round 1 to round 10. Okay, it means that now we need to generate for 10 rounds we need to generate 10 keys out of this key, right? And this initially we need one more key, so 11 keys we need to generate. Now note that key is 1 in the beginning. Okay, so this is, let's say, 128 bit key. From this key we generate these sub keys. Is called key expansion. And for each round we use one key. Okay, now what are we going to do in this? First thing is that this 128 bit data will convert into a block. Okay, so it's something like this. Just a minute. So this is a conversion into 128 is converted into this block of 16 bytes, which is 4 into 4. 4 byte into 4 byte, right? Is array. Is a matrix. Okay, so now we basically all right. Just a minute. Okay, where are we? We are here. Okay, so 128 bit we convert this into a block. Okay, and this block keeps moving down here. Okay, all right. So now in each stage we do something. Now we are, again, note that we are not trying to get into too much detail, but I have included this in the class today because I would like to give you some idea about it, right? The first thing we do is that we do a key expansion, right? We said for one key we generate multiple sub keys, and there is an initial round, and then there are multiple rounds, and then there is a final round. So initial round and final rounds are different, and then there are intermediate rounds which are same. So what are they going to do? So first thing is that we generate sub keys here, right? Okay, from the main key. Okay, so now key size here again is basically 32-bit word. So basically 4 is 128-bit key we generated for each round. Okay, so here note there is just see this 128-bit sub key, and these are different. Now each round what we are going to do, we are going to substitute bytes, shift rows, mix columns, and do exclusive OR, add round key. And we do this is for 10 rounds, right? And total we will have 11 rounds. Okay, and reverse thing we do here for decryption. Okay, now what are these things? First thing we have to convert 128 bits that are coming in as a block into a matrix. That is a process, this algorithm for this, okay, which we can do. Now these blocks keep moving from one stage to other, and now it comes to one intermittent stage here, or what we call is one round. Okay, and so this state keeps changing. Now we substitute bytes here, take up some bytes from this and substitute with something else. Okay, then we come here, then we do shift rows, then we get it gets converted into this one, then we mix column in this, right? Then we get here, and then the last stage is then do exclusive OR again. Okay, and then we get the final encrypted data. Okay, so it's something like this. First is byte substitution. First one says byte substitution. Now what we do is that this is our input. Take one byte, and based on its 8 bits, 4 into 4, you take this value, and then we have a matrix called S box, and you get some substitution byte from this, and then change this in output. Now, how do you generate this S box, etc., is none of our concern right now. There is a method called GF function. Okay, so we are not going to get into it. So first thing was substitute byte from in the original block, and so we get a substitution block here. Okay, now so it's like this. So this was original block, and then you got from this substitution block, and then we can reverse function and get the original block when you do reverse of this, right, or decryption. Okay, now we come here. Okay, so what we have done substitution. Now we have come here. Now we need to manipulate in the rows. So basically what we do is that this is first row, second, third, fourth. Now do the circular shift. First row is circular shifted by, first row remains same. Second row is circular shifted by 1. So after shift it becomes like this. This one will come here. Third row will shift by 2 and fourth row will shift by 3. So output will be like this, right? Okay, this is again shown here. So once we shift this is a block. Okay, after shift it will become like this. You note that it's a left shifted by 1, this left shifted by 2, and so on and so forth, right? Now after shifting we come here, mix column. So now still we have matrix or block of data. Now how can we manipulate between columns, right? So what we do is that we look at the column, do some kind of mathematical manipulation, and then get the output here. So it's called mixed column transformation, which operates at column level. It transforms each column into a state of new column. Okay, again we are not going to get into what is this and so on, right? So just look at only from the perspective of column level transformation. And then finally we do, once we have done column level manipulation, we get output, and then we add some kind of one key we use, that key, one of the keys that we have generated, right? We have generated sub keys and use that for exclusive OR function, and we get the output. All right. Okay, so at keys, we do exclusive OR of each row with this one, and we'll get some output. Okay, so this is all AES rounds put together here. Please go through it by yourself. Okay, now we have seen that what are we doing? We are substituting, there we have multiple rounds, we are doing exclusive OR, we are shifting rows, we are doing column level manipulation. Okay, all right. So can we prove that it is secure? No. Okay, we cannot prove it, but it has been secure. Nobody is able to break it. Yeah, all right. Okay, all right. Okay, so implementation aspect, it has to be efficient and fast. Okay, is it IND CPA secure? No, because if you use the same key, you generate the same output. Okay, so you look at this way, that initially Eve tricks Alice in encrypting message, so she does this round for several times, and then she sends M1 and M0 and M1, and Alice picks up one of these. Okay, and then we so now if it means that now Eve sends M0 first, and then she gets encryption back, sends M1, then gets encryption back, and then this experiment starts. that you know, Alice picks one of the M0 and M1 and send it back. Now Eve knows that, you know, what is encryption of M0. She also knows that what is encryption of N1. Okay. Now when Eve sends M0 and M1 and Alice picks one of that, okay, let's assume Alice picks up M1 and then sends the output, then Eve will immediately come to know that is same as what she has done, and this text corresponds to M1. Okay, so we say that because it's not, keys are not one time used, hence we can say that it's not IND CPA secure. Okay, so what are the issues with block ciphers? These are not IND CPA secure because these are all deterministic. Now non-determinism was coming in one time pad because of every time keys were different. Okay, and we have, all right. Now, but block ciphers can encrypt message of fixed size, the 128 bits only, right? So we'll have to find out a way, which we'll study in the next class, how can we encrypt larger size messages. Okay, all right. So these are the things that we have studied today. I think you can go through it. Okay, when you get time. All right. Okay, any question? All right then, thank you.